A story is not born simple. To think it so is to choose from two colours when painting a mood. To pick a side and stick, despite what everyone knows about the holes in both. All this digging makes me wonder at what we want, our neatness need. The toll paid for bad and good cut smooth is a teetering heap of details. We like our edges sanded clean, and our heroes pantomimed unshakably sweet. It's easy to forget that there is such thing as a double-edged sin. I've been tracing the path backwards, looking for shoes to put myself in, present and past in either hand, trying to spot the difference.
In terms of work and disability, it can sometimes be difficult to distinguish the difference between the disability and myself, because the disability is part of me, but it is something that has been done to me. But it should not define me. But when it comes to the world of work, then the disability is what I am. And people automatically often may assume certain things about me when they realise that I cannot see well. So I constantly have to try and not let the disability define who I am. But it's not easy.
In the Edinburgh Blind Asylum, the majority of the inmates worked on basket weaving, mattress stuffing, or brush making. And more generally, historically, these were the types of jobs that blind people had. We learn to become the name we are most called. Funny, the habits we fall for. Who first said weave and it stuck? What worlds lived in the tips of swollen fingers, and how many homes got an inch of their skill? Was the city not just the map of all their makings? Who could number the dreams made sweet on a stuffed mattress, or the slip-ups brushed out of relevance? The dirtied days carried overhead in a laundry basket? Who could count the calluses?
I found my identity as a visually impaired person quite complicated in regards to work. I think, especially growing up, realising certain jobs we wouldn't be allowed to do was quite a big thing. I'll never be a policewoman. I'll never be a firefighter. I wouldn't work for the army. Not that I ever wanted to do any of these, but I do wonder how much of that is linked to my psyche, because that was one of the first things I was told you can't do. I think I'm pretty open now with my impairment and how that affects me visually. But I still think no matter what, it's when people interfere with that and step in, and even if that comes from a good place, people feeling like they have to support you or talk on behalf of you isn't the nice thing they think it is, and can create this exclusion. Sometimes it feels like there's a wall around me.
The institution received a lot of praise and support because of the way in which it gave blind and visually impaired people across the city access to employment opportunities. And across the time of the institution's existence, from its early days to its closure in this century, that was a problem that persisted. A good day lives differently in each body that it visits. It is curling lips at the way light splits a window for some. The feeling that your hands have earned their sleep and a warm place to put them. Someone pulling you into better. A drop in the shoulders as a week slips past without its hours hanging open, empty. A table over folded legs. The opposite of a bruise you used to have. Bones that know they are not incapable. Quieter noise between your thoughts.
When I think of work, I think of something which is difficult to do, to get, to take part in a way which is not going to exhaust me or depress me. I think of difficulties in knowing what kind of work to do as a young person, thinking that the world of work was inaccessible to me or I would be shut off from it in lots of ways. Work is preparation and photocopying textbooks and getting the photocopies wrong and starting again, feeling guilty about the paper that's wasted. It's struggling to explain myself, the way I behave and operate, struggling to explain my visual impairment to students and colleagues, not explaining myself to students and colleagues. It's missing gestures. It's becoming anxious in the classroom as I'm aware that the students are looking at me and thinking, what is this guy doing? Why did he not see that thing which was on the desk in front of him? So work is knocking over coffee cups onto textbooks. It's accidentally kicking chairs and students' bags and trampling jumpers underfoot. It's dropping board markers on the floor and not being able to see where they are, so I just leave them there as if I don't care that I've dropped a board marker on the floor. But I did care very much.
The institution relied really heavily upon charity, and when you look back through their various calls for donations, you can see that they played a lot on the fact that a lot of people among the sighted public had a real fear of losing their vision. And there have been a lot of studies and surveys in more recent years which have proven that that is still one of the greatest fears that most people have when it comes to their own health and their bodies. Please, cross a road with me. Feel death on your face. Have a friend hold up their warmth between your shoulder blades. Swat off someone else's sourness and know that a few good words or the right moment might have fixed it. Fall in love with a cracking tune, the soft in a voice and a favourite dish. Live a life and tell me that my body is a bad dream you have. Laugh. Worry yourself awake. Take in a morning slowly and say, honestly, that your thoughts couldn't take you to a darker place. Please.
I think it's not surprising that I ended up working for myself or being a freelancer. I have had jobs in the past, worked for mostly bars and one admin job, But I think it always frightened me before starting work. Because I have low vision, I guess there's a kind of middle ground where I can pass as more sighted than I am. So, there would be quite a lot of stress before starting a job. I remember the bar job that I had. We had these kind of old-fashioned tills where each drink had a button, and they were slightly colour-coded, but I would sort of memorise the order that the drinks would go in so that I could just do it through touch and memory rather than seeing the print on the button, which was really small.
Despite a lot of the praise that the institution was given by the public, there was also a lot of controversy surrounding the way that business was conducted and the way that inmates were looked after. This poem is built up with lines which are taken from news reports that document some of that controversy. There are some things which have come to light within the walls of the institution. The state of the accounts, a great want of accommodation. With the company in the main hall and the blind in the gallery, the helpless blind, a most interesting portion of the community. Deliver them from misery, exhausted from their day's work, in the misfortune they have laboured under. There are various ways of stating facts. All this controversy has arisen. Complaints of the blind men in the boarding house. The truly peculiar management and condition. The feeling of the meeting was against the questions being answered. Inaccurate, misleading, object of anxiety. When the bell rings at 6 in the asylum, the whole thing is shrouded in mystery, limited and confined, afflicted. There were many toasts. Mr. James Gray proposed the health of the directors and secretary. Hear, hear.
Work gives me life, but admin kills my creativity. Work gives me the ability to get out in the morning, but also keeps me in bed for days at a time. Stressed beyond belief. Work can often be the reason that I smile, but can also make me feel vile. Sometimes when I have lots of work, it makes me want to do more work. Last week, I got ill because I was stressed about work. I cancelled all my work and then I was better again and had nothing to do.
The institution continued to operate under the name of Blindcraft, making beds and mattresses until 2011, when there were calls for closure. There were a lot of protests and complaints, especially from the many blind and visually impaired people which the factory still employed. But it was ultimately decided that the company was no longer financially viable or an option for the city to keep open. And you know this story, whatever way it sits on the page or falls through a microphone. The one about decisions, conversations, disputes. And there was back and forth, emotion, tension, but there just wasn't enough. And they really tried. But you've read this press release. Regrettably, disappointingly, unfortunately. The campaign was passionate, organised, admirable, but don't forget the necessary, the future, the funding. And it's very difficult for everyone. Of course, there are details, families, and frustrations, decades, homes, concerns. And we understand, and the crowd spoke over noise, through tears, and tried to write it different. But there were complications, votes, choices. And you know the story. It ends the usual way.
When you're like visually impaired or have any sort of disability, it can make things so much more difficult in the workplace. So it does feel like there's like it's more like work, and also there's extra work that goes into it on top of the job itself, because we have, I don't know, there's like emotional work and kind of like work, like worrying about kind of, do people understand my condition? Like, should I sort of be pretending that I'm kind of more able-sighted? Like, is it weird if I flag this? Is it weird if I do this? Like, oh, they've asked me to go and fetch this person. I can't see where they are. What, like, should I say? Should I just look for them? What if I can't find them? Like, I just think, yeah, there's a lot of work that goes on kind of behind the scenes as well. Like when we do any kind of job. In other jobs, we've done like hot desking across like entire vast offices, and I'll come in like really scared because I don't know anyone that well, and I don't know where they are, and I don't want to walk past them and like kind of they think I'm ignoring them, and then like people will show me things on their computer screen and they'll kind of point and they'll ask me stuff, and I can't see what they're pointing at, and I don't know whether they know about my eyesight or not, and I don't know whose place it is to say, like whether it's my place or HR or something. So it's a huge battle, and it's like definitely one of the places that I feel the least comfortable.
There's very little physical trace or memorial of this story around Edinburgh today. And it's quite difficult to source a lot of information about it too. I think that's what feels important about Disability History Month, in terms of bringing to light these stories and not shying away from the difficult parts of them, the complexities and the nuance of them, but instead having discussion around that. A new skin is to be expected. Cities are their own animal. But where does history go when we've had enough of it? Give us drone and clatter. God forbid we live in silence too long. Give us windows to fill, and something to paint a paling face pinker. A corner to stuff all that is done or difficult, until it's too much mess for us to handle. Give us drawers and gates and establishments. Why settle in the nooks of a gaping past? Give us bluster or colour to plaster with. When words are sitting tricky, give us a block of flats. Give us something to look at.
When I hear work, I also think of working with people and the experiences of community that I've had throughout my working life. That feeling of working together, working as a team, being in a shared space with a group of people who have a shared vision.
And so now working for myself, yeah, I mean, I think that that's mostly a really great thing, but I do wonder if it's a way round the idea that no one's looking over my shoulder.
My current work of providing therapeutic massage gives me great satisfaction because my so-called disability is my strength and my advantage above sighted therapists. So I rely on touch and the feedback of helping people in a real tangible way with their long-term aches or conditions is very satisfying.
I am a creative, so work where I can use my creative voice and learn and expand what that is. That's the kind of work that satisfies me. And I always say, like, I'm not going to be like the next Prime Minister, although honestly, probably at this point I could do a good job. I'm not going to fly off to Mars, but what I can do is use my artistic voice to help people and educate, and that's the work that satisfies me, and that's the work that I enjoy seeing. And maybe a part of that comes from knowing how different my life would have been if I saw someone like me growing up in any sort of workforce.
I like writing because, again, I feel like it's a place I can actually kind of explain myself, and no one's kind of looking over my shoulder and judging my typos, and I'm not expected to kind of engage with anyone. So I like that. I've just started learning how to code. And again, I like it because I can zoom in and get the code really big, and like, I just do it at my own pace. And again, I'm not having to explain like why I've zoomed in my text or my screen or anything. Like, it's just me and my computer. I think a lot of the work that I like involves like me by myself and my computer, which is strange and kind of sad because I am actually a really sociable person, but I think the modern workplace makes it very difficult to kind of be social when you can't really kind of see what's around you.
I think of all the students I've taught. I think of their faces, their voices, and how work can be extremely rewarding, positive, purposeful. So that's what I think of when I think of work.